Flying Boat, as a seasoned emergency medicine physician and now certified Black Cloud, I believe in the biblical principle of duality. Things happen in pairs, a cosmic dance of fate. That night, the universe delivered a double dose of tragedy. A car accident on a bridge, a boat involved, a modern-day Noah's Ark. The helicopter, our lifeline, refused to cooperate. The turbines, defiant, refused to spool up, their RPM stubbornly low. A green light for takeoff was impossible. We aborted the mission, and our other aircraft grounded for maintenance. Ground transport, a less than ideal option, was our only recourse. The pilot's jeep, a sturdy companion, carried us through the winding back roads. We intercepted an ambulance, a motley crew eager to join the fray. The anticipation was palpable, a sense of excitement mixed with dread. The construction site was a chaos of flashing lights and roaring engines. The bridge, a skeletal steel frame, loomed over the dry riverbed. The wreckage, a testament to the violence of the impact, was a scene of carnage. The vehicles, twisted and mangled, smoked ominously. I doubted anyone could have survived. The sheer force of the impact, the plunge from the bridge, seemed impossible. Yet amidst the wreckage, life clung to the edge. We stumbled through the darkness, guided by the piercing beams of the halogen lights. The jaws of life, a monstrous tool of destruction and salvation, gnawed at the wreckage. The firefighters, their faces etched with grim determination, prepared for the extraction. The boat, a fiberglass hulk, had disintegrated. Shards of the vessel peppered the landscape, a haunting testament to the force of gravity. A cooler filled with empty beer cans lay abandoned, a stark reminder of the carefree moments shattered by tragedy. Two bodies previously deposited onto the ground were visible as we crossed the dry riverbed. One, now a shell of a man, lay motionless. The other, miraculously conscious, screamed obscenities, a defiant cry against the abyss of a night. My nurse-paramedic partner, fierce in determination, volunteered to take the more critical patient and peeled off to the left. I approached the belligerent patient, a whirlwind of profanity and flailing limbs. The first responders, their efforts valiant, struggled to restrain him. The patient, his head a bloody mess, was a testament to the violence of the accident. Despite his injuries, his vitals were surprisingly stable, and his pupils were reactive. The smell of alcohol, a pungent reminder of his reckless behavior, hung heavy in the air. I resisted the urge to intubate, which I found exhilarating, but a combination of chemical restraint and immobilization was sufficient for now. I packaged him for transport, a task made more challenging by his incessant profanity. My seasoned veteran partner was dealing with a far more critical case. Her patient, a human wreck, suffered from a litany of injuries: a femur fracture, a pelvic fracture, a collapsed lung, broken ribs, a severe head injury, and hypotension. The situation was dire, a race against time. She had secured the airway, addressed the pneumothorax, and initiated fluid resuscitation. I assisted her in stabilizing the pelvic fracture, a delicate procedure that required precision and strength. The patient was bleeding internally, his life hanging by a thread. A stroke of luck intervened as we prepared to transport the female patient. The presence of a second operational helicopter, a luxury in the world of aeromedical transport, saved the day. With the assistance of the EMS and fire crew, we loaded the patients into the helicopter and ascended into the sky. My patient, temporarily stable, continued his verbal assault, his words a venomous spray against the windshield of my consciousness. Years of abuse, a rite of passage for medical residents, had hardened me to his tirade. A simple mask silenced him, a temporary respite from the verbal barrage. The other patient, however, was deteriorating. His friend, a man possessed, reached for the endotracheal tube, a desperate act of defiance. His words, a slurred, incoherent plea, were a stark reminder of the destructive power of alcohol. We landed, the hospital towering above us. The trauma bay, a hive of activity, awaited our arrival. The trauma surgeons, their faces a mix of calm anticipation, prepared for the familiar onslaught. My patient, a victim of his own recklessness, underwent a barrage of tests, the results a grim testament to his injuries. He would be the practice pallet for the orthopedic residents and interns for most of the night. The trauma surgery chief resident barked a command, "Let's move," and rushed our patient to the operating room, a chorus of residents and medical students in tow. Hours passed, a blur of surgical intervention. The patient required a trip to the angiography suite to control the bleeding, and blood transfusions were a constant companion. Next, a bolt, slang for intracranial pressure monitor, was inserted into his skull. Despite the valiant efforts of the medical team, the damage was too extensive. The brain, deprived of oxygen, had suffered irreversible damage. 4 days later, he was gone. The tragedy was a stark reminder of the fragility of life. 2 lifelong friends, bound by shared experiences, had fallen victim to a senseless act of recklessness. Alcohol, speed, and the illusion of invincibility had claimed their lives, a cautionary tale for generations to come.